An unknown businessman called my phone a week before the wedding to ask how long I've been sleeping with his 22-year-old wife. Penelope looked across the candlelit table, wiped a manicured hand across her perfect, tear-stained cheek, and told me that we needed to postpone our upcoming autumn wedding because she suddenly couldn't bring herself to walk down the aisle without a strictly binding prenuptial agreement. I sat there completely bewildered, staring at my 22-year-old fiancée, a girl who looked the definition of sweet, naive innocence, but who was currently acting like a seasoned corporate attorney. She claimed her sudden cold feet and demand for a prenup were just to protect her family's vast estate, sobbing about how she loved me too much to let financial anxieties ruin our future. I was so deeply infatuated with her that I didn't care about the money. I agreed to whatever she wanted, completely blind to the fact that her sudden hesitation had absolutely nothing to do with cold feet, and everything to do with a desperate panic to hide a massive criminal web of lies. To anyone looking at Penelope, she seemed like a harmless, slightly ditzy young woman who was simply accustomed to the finer things in life. She was a stunningly beautiful girl, the kind who turned every single head the moment she walked into a room, and I considered myself the luckiest man alive to have won her heart. During our year of dating, I spared absolutely no expense to make her happy, showering her with designer bags, diamond jewelry, and incredibly lavish vacations. We went on an exclusive 2-week Mediterranean cruise where she was constantly the center of attention, followed by a weekend getaway to a private villa in the Maldives. We didn't live together yet because Penelope insisted on a very traditional arrangement. She claimed she still lived with her ultra-wealthy, old-money father in his sprawling suburban mansion, which perfectly explained why she always insisted I drop her off at the gated entrance of the community rather than driving her up to the front door. I had already introduced her to my entire family, who were charmed by her bright smile, and I truly believed I was building a life with a flawless, high-society princess. The glittering illusion exploded into absolute chaos exactly 1 week after she postponed the wedding. I was sitting in my office when an unknown number flashed on my phone screen. I answered, expecting a client, but instead, a mature, deeply authoritative male voice echoed through the line, immediately asking me exactly how long I had been sleeping with Penelope. The man on the phone said, "Thomas, my name is Ronald. I am a 48-year-old businessman, and the girl you think is your fiancée has been my legal wife for the last 2 years." My brain completely short-circuited as Ronald laid out the agonizing truth. Penelope was not a wealthy heiress living with her father. She was a calculated, predatory gold digger who had targeted Ronald for his corporate wealth. But when she realized his business assets were tied up in investments and couldn't fund her absurdly escalating financial demands, she went hunting for a second source of income on the side. She had stumbled upon me, a successful younger man with independent financial stability, and decided to double dip. She had managed to balance an entire secret marriage with Ronald while simultaneously planning a lavish wedding with me, using my expensive gifts to supplement her lifestyle while telling Ronald she was away on extended girls' trips whenever we flew to the Maldives or went on cruises. Ronald had only discovered my existence after finding a hidden folder of our wedding vendor receipts in her purse, and he was currently driving straight to my house to reclaim his property. Before I could even process the sheer magnitude of the betrayal, a car slammed its brakes out on my driveway. I rushed to the front window and watched in absolute horror as a luxury black SUV pulled up, and out stepped Ronald, a broad-shouldered, stern-faced older man, flanked by a massive personal security guard. Penelope was already inside my house at that exact moment, having arrived an hour earlier to borrow my laptop. Hearing the commotion outside, she walked out onto the front porch right behind me, her face instantly turning a sickly, ghostly shade of green the second her eyes landed on Ronald. What followed was the most humiliating, surreal spectacle I have ever witnessed in my life. Ronald marched up my front steps like an angry deity, completely ignoring me, and grabbed Penelope right by the scruff of her neck, dragging her down the stairs exactly like a small, spoiled, misbehaving puppy. The absolute facade of the sophisticated, elegant woman I loved instantly disintegrated into a pathetic, shrieking mess. Penelope screamed at the top of her lungs, "Ronnie, please, I'm so sorry. It's all his fault. Thomas forced me into this, he manipulated me, he's the one who ruined everything." She was violently crying, screeching like a wild animal, completely throwing me under the bus to save her own skin without a single shred of hesitation. Ronald didn't buy a single word of her theatrical performance. He looked at his massive security guard with complete indifference. Ronald barked to his guard, "Take her designer purse and strip every single one of my credit cards out of her wallet right now. She is officially grounded. Not a single dollar of shopping for the next month." The security guard stepped forward, ruthlessly snatching her luxury leather bag right out of her hands while Penelope wailed, kicking her legs and wrestling like an unhinged toddler on my front lawn. During the frantic struggle, her expensive designer dress pulled all the way up, completely exposing her backside to the entire neighborhood. Clumps of her high-end, clip-in hair extensions tore loose in the chaos, scattering across my concrete porch steps like dead leaves. She was completely frantic, sobbing hysterically over the loss of her credit cards rather than the fact that she had just destroyed two men's lives simultaneously. Ronald opened the back door of his SUV, shoved her inside like a piece of unwanted luggage, and slammed the door shut on her muffled screams, leaving me standing on my porch in absolute, paralyzed shock. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the empty driveway and the literal chunks of fake hair littering my steps, unable to comprehend the sheer madness of the situation. I was completely shattered. The girl I had held in my arms, the girl I had dreamed of starting a family with, was nothing more than an infant-brained, spoiled brat who was kept on a leash by an older businessman who treated her like an unruly pet rather than a spouse. The most agonizing part was the raw, throbbing pain in my chest despite the disgusting absurdity of what I had just witnessed. I had genuinely loved her, and realizing that every single "I love you" she had ever whispered to me was just a transaction to fund her next shopping spree felt like a fatal wound to my soul. 6 months have passed since that explosive afternoon, and the dust has finally settled, revealing the grim aftermath of Penelope's greed. I cut off every single line of communication instantly, blocking her number and ignoring the frantic, manipulative emails she attempted to send me from fake accounts, begging me to give her another chance because Ronald had ultimately initiated a brutal, high-stakes divorce that would leave her with absolutely nothing due to their actual prenuptial agreement. It turned out her sudden demand for a prenup with me was a desperate attempt to ensure that when Ronald eventually found out and divorced her, she would already have my assets legally locked down for her own protection. I spent months in intensive therapy, working through the profound trust issues and the deep humiliation of being used so thoroughly as a financial tool. My family rallied around me, helping me heal from the psychological damage of her calculated theater. Today, I am slowly rebuilding my life from scratch, focusing entirely on my career and reclaiming my own self-worth. I kept those pieces of her ruined hair extensions in a trash bin for weeks as a grim reminder of how quickly a beautiful illusion can fall apart. I am no longer looking for a picture-perfect princess to fill my life. I have learned the hard way that true beauty is entirely worthless when it masks a hollow, predatory heart, and I am moving forward into the future with my eyes wide open, finally free from the grip of a dangerous child.